You're listening to the Wrigleyville Nation podcast. Season ticket holders and lifelong fans with neighborhood ties discuss Cubs news and neighborhood happenings. Here's your hosts, Jeremy and Pat.
Hello and welcome to the Wrigleyville Nation podcast. For the 400th time, my name is Jeremy Deemer, and I will be your host. And I'm joined as always by my co-host. He's my cousin, and he's high atop of Wrigleyville tonight. How's it going, Pat?
Jeremy, it's going well. I think we're at $3.99 each, though, because we've each missed one episode over the course of the last 12 or 13 years, which, you know, we're not exactly Cal Ripken or Lou Gehrig, but we're pretty close.
Pretty close. Taking you all the way back to November of 2013, the first time we did one of these podcasts. Here we are in April of 2026, still going strong. And to help us break down all the Cubs news, we've got a ton to talk about. Episode 400 extravaganza is going to be jam-packed. Cubs news, we've got games to talk about. We weren't here last week, so we've got all of from the home opener to now the first 10 games to discuss to help us break down all the news and talk all things Cubs. You know him from his work at Northside Baseball and, of course, his many appearances on this podcast. This is his 38th appearance on the podcast, running away with the leaderboard. Longtime friend of the show, Matt Trueblood. Matt, thanks for taking time out to talk Cubs with us tonight.
Couldn't imagine a better guest for number 400.
Well, and I couldn't have missed it. I couldn't have born to miss it. I'd have crashed somehow, gotten the link, and, you know, come in the back door if needed. Yeah, happy to be here.
Well, we will go through the news, and then we will talk about the games, because we've got a lot of happenings since last we podcast. We've got the core of the team, if you will, has been extended. Pete Crow Armstrong got a new contract, 6 years, $115 million. And a little bit of a surprise that to me that he would be considered part of the core. A guy you'd need for another 6 years, Nico Hoerner, 6 years, $141 million. And of course, a guy you would give a no trade clause to. Matt, let's start with you and your thoughts on both these deals.
Yeah, I mean, they're so different in a way just because, well, first of all, because of the ways in which PCA and Nico are different, but also just that one was on the cusp of free agency, an impending free agent, and the other one, they already had team control for 5 years. So PCA's doesn't start till next year, neither does Nico's. So it extends that control by 2 years for them. But it's very different than obviously Nico's effectively like signing a free agent in advance. It's fascinating. Like you said, that this is the core of the team now. Those two, you know, they're still, Dansby's still here through 2029, Alex Bregman through 2030. This is the group they are fully committing to. And I don't think that's bad or anything. It's just interesting because you've got these guys. I don't know. Each player has at least a notable flaw or some, you know, it's not even so much a flaw in Dansby's game as, you know, the decline's coming. You know, he's headed into his mid-30s. There's questions around all of these guys, but this is the group that they're locking in now, and they're going to commit to it. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think the structure of each deal is really interesting, but just fascinating to see them pull the trigger, sort of bang, bang, bang when you go back, connect these two deals to signing Bregman, to trading for Edward Cabrera. They went from really having clean books, but not a lot of certainty beyond this year, and feeling like they were all in and not very in for 2026 to, you know, really good roster this year. That's also what the roster is going to look like for the foreseeable future, right?
Yeah, Pat, we were laughing throughout the offseason that they were adverse to anything that wasn't a one-year deal before signing Bregman.
That's right.
And now here, PCA's contract, you wanted to see more years. And with Hoerner's, you were a little surprised at how many years he got.
7 for PCA and 5 for Nico would have been probably a preferable alternative, but you have to do what you have to do. And I think Matt's absolutely right that they were going to have clean books and now they're not. But on the other hand, when you start looking at the deals in terms of the amounts that they're paying, these are pretty clean deals in the sense that you're going to pay Nico an average of $23.5 million a year, which, trust me, in the year 2033, you'll probably be looking back at a $23 million deal and saying, that's barely over the league minimum. What are we doing here? I mean, it's not going to seem like it is. In the same way, the Suzuki deal, the 4-year deal that he signed 3.5 years ago, right, for $15 million a year may have seemed like a lot to people, but I don't think $15 million today seems like much, when you've got Juan Soto making $52 million or whatever. PCA, same thing, $19 million a year. Now, granted, he would have had some cheaper years, but in the front. But since the Cubs have nobody else to pay right now, you might as well pay him now and then level it out, because that could end up being one of those deals where there could be a Scottie Pippen deal by the time you get to the end if all things work out, frankly, right?
He's the guy. He's the guy
Yeah.
right now who's drawing crowds, right? Like he's
Yeah,
the
right,
guy who
right.
people come to see play. And if you can
And people
lock
have
him
his
up-
jersey, like middle-aged men of his jersey, which is kind of weird in a way. But but leaving that aside too, I think the two things these guys have in common, if you're looking for some commonality, is that they both have, in many areas of their game, to Matt's point, a very high floor, right? PCA has speed and defense, and his offense may have, and I would predict will have some ups and downs over the years, like in a Javi Baez kind of way, where he's going to seem like an MVP one for a month, and then for the next month he's going to seem like a AA player, whatever. But his defense and speed are going to be like a sort of a floor base that is going to be kind of hard to replicate for the same amount of money elsewhere, right? So he's got that going for him. And in the same regard, Nico Hoerner has the defense. He plays second base, which is a position where, as you get older, you can still play second base. I mean, if the center field prospect was about to turn 30, I would have been a little bit more concerned about a 6-year deal than if it's a second base prospect, right? So, or the second base, individual. Nico can't hit home runs, but he's never going to, and it's just never going to happen. His hit tool, I think, I don't know if he relies as much on bat speed as some guys do. He certainly is a good hitter now, and those skills and his speed also may, diminish over time. But again, you're paying for the upfront, and at the end of the deal, realistically, the last 2 years of the deal aren't going to look great. But so what? I guess at this point, because if you're a big boy team, then you just get somebody else and you platoon him, or you do whatever you have to with him. He's also great insurance for shortstop if something ever happens to Swanson, at least in the next year or two. You just and the other thing I've been thinking about a lot, and maybe this came off the heels of the Kyle Tucker experiment, which we look at as an abject disaster, not because they tried it, but just the way it turned out, right? Giving up Cam Smith and Isaac Paredes and getting nothing in return and having him kind of disappear in the second half. Thing about that deal, though, that maybe, and who's to say, but I get the sense that it reminded them a little bit that what made that 2015, 16, 17, 18 stretch so good was that they had some guys in that clubhouse who you could rely on to be leaders and you could rely on to be professionals, right? Say what you will about Jason Hayward on the field, he was a professional. John Lester was a professional. Kyle Hendricks was a professional. These guys were legit, like major league. Ben Zobrist. These guys were grown-ups, right? And I feel like Nico Hoerner has some of that in him, and I think maybe the Cubs are looking at, and PCA, although a young player, has leadership potential, I think, as he matures and gets older. I think they kind of look at that now after the Kyle Tucker experiment last year, and they're probably thinking, you know what, if we're going to put some money on somebody for long term, we can put a lot less of it on these guys, but also, we're not going to get somebody who's just going to kind of like aloofly disappear on us, right? Like, these guys are gamers, and both of these guys have that one thing in common: is they really want to win, and they try hard, and they'll do stuff to help the team win that maybe won't be a big stat for them. And at this point, Nico doesn't have to worry about stats because this is the last deal he's ever going to sign of any great value, right? So they can continue to do stuff that helps the team win games and be good clubhouse influences. And there's value in that. I don't know how you put that on, how you put that value on wins, at the end of the year. Some people, I think, overvalue it, some undervalue it, but I think you have to value it in some way.
Very exciting to see the Cubs making moves. Negative impacts forcing moves for the Cubs to make.
Oh, one last thing about that. As a result of those, any thoughts on the implications of signing those two guys long-term with Bregman and Swanson around? I mean, other than the obvious, which is they really don't have a lot of confidence in Matt Shaw. What does that tell you about? What does that tell you about the rest of about the future lineup construction?
Yeah, well, I think one thing, just to connect what you talked about with PCA and Nico dispositionally, that's the same thing from Dansby and Bregman too, right? Not just that they won't go aloof or kind of go numb on you, but they are very active, very team-focused leaders. I mean, I think we all get a little uncomfortable when the investment seems to go really heavily in that direction, as opposed to just go get really talented players. But they are betting a little bit on the collective makeup of the group, right? And each of them sort of spurring the others on and all of that. And I don't mean to downplay that either. I think that's something interesting and cool about picking these four to really build around. It also makes the contracts feel just a little bit strange because some of the numbers don't necessarily match up with what you'd think. I'll also just point out before we move on that you mentioned sort of the structure of the PCA deal and, how these are going to feel at the end and stuff. I also think they're built a little bit to avoid having uglier back ends than they could have. Both deals are obviously in different ways because they're different, they were at different points, but I think it would have been possible to get PCA on a longer deal that saved them more money up front, but they preferred, we either were going to have to go another 4 or 5 years and give him $30 million for each of those in order.
In which case we won the first deal.
Right. And so it's like, do you want to go 4 more years out paying the top dollar to save 15 or 20 million over the first 3 years of this deal? Or would you rather pay more money up front and not have the scary back end? And I think that, it's interesting which way they chose to go with both of those, and leaves them in a position where you're not terribly afraid of any of these deals really going south. It's just none of them are going to return so much crazy value other than, as we talked about, PCA having that potential. It seems there's like a 10% chance that PCA is a super mega bargain in 3 years, but mostly they don't have that high an upside, but they have a really high downside as a group and as individual contracts. All, not just those two, but extending that out to Bregman and Swanson as well.
You follow the Brewers a little more closely than we do, or than we have to. Is Craig Counsell, is this the kind of, these are the kind of players he likes? Like, is there something about him where he likes this type of clubhouse?
I think a little bit. I think Craig is not Joe Madden or Pat Murphy, who are, Madden's the real predecessor. Obviously, David Ross was here as sort of a bridge, but he never put that strong a stamp on the team. There was Madden before Counsell, and there's Murphy, who was his coach in college, then his understudy as the bench coach in Milwaukee, and now his replacement. Those are two guys where Madden sort of intentionally, Murphy sort of by a little bit passively, there's a kind of a cult of personality. This team will play this way for this guy, and you'll build a team with their personality in mind and stuff. Counsell is much more quiet leader, function over form. He doesn't have real strong preferences about stylistically how you play baseball. He really does not. It's almost a strong characteristic of him that sets him apart from other people, how little he focuses on having any strong characteristic. But I do think he appreciates having these guys where leadership is diffuse in the clubhouse. There's not 3 or 4 guys. The old Sparky Anderson with the Reds would say, these 4 guys are the superstars. You look to them for leadership. I trust them in a way I don't trust you. Sorry, if you're not one of those 4, you're going to have to figure it out and fall in line. That is not what Craig wants to do. Craig wants to trust everybody, spread that leadership out, have everyone be accountable. But it really helps to have a few tentpole guys who exemplify that for everyone else, who don't have to be, even to a Rizzo extent, you don't have to have everybody crowded around one guy in the clubhouse, but to have a handful of guys that he knows his guys can always look to. So he doesn't have to be micromanaging them from day to day. He'd much rather think about matchups, think about pitcher, bullpen usage across the season, all of that stuff, than do the person by person personality management that a lot of these managers do like to spend more time on. So it helps to have these guys in his clubhouse.
A couple of the tentpole players in the rotation have hit the IL this week. Sad to see. Cade Horton first. Watching Cade Horton in the second inning leave the game with a right forearm injury. As of the time of this recording, still waiting to hear more details. But
spoiler, he's out for the year.
It's
right? Come on.
It really felt bad when you saw his reaction. It really felt like this is real. This is real bad. And I think I texted you a lot of expletives, Pat.
Yeah.
It was
not too many guys leave the field crying when they're day to day. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So hopefully we can still hold out hope for good news, but devastating to lose a guy like Cade Horton, and also devastating to lose a guy like Matthew Boyd, who hit the IL today with a bicep injury. These are 2 huge losses. Silver lining, Javier Assad's coming up. That's all overdue. He should have been here already. But Matt, we'll start with you. If this is, hopefully Boyd is more of a short term, but a Cade Horton long term. I know that this rotation we were already looking at a possibility of like a 6-man rotation at some points because they had enough depth, but now we're really seeing the hand be forced.
Yeah, I mean, not only what worries me is not even so much that you've lost these 2 for however long you have. And I don't want to make the assumption about Horton just because he tried to strike a sort of, I think I caught it early kind of note after he actually left the game. I wasn't really buying that. But look, we'll wait and see what the MRI says, right? And Boyd, they're trying to sell it as sort of a maintenance move. He's 35 and he's Matthew Boyd. He's been through what he's been through. I think it's going to be a month on him. So that's not great if it's any 2 pitchers in your rotation. It's really not great that it's these 2, because if you lined up the 5 who made the rotation to start the year and said, who's the most likely to get hurt and who's the least, these would have been the 2 I would have put in the least likely bin. Now that says a lot about the rotation as a whole, more than it does about them, but Imanaga had the hamstring strain last year and just didn't look like his arm was fully healthy heading down the stretch. He has looked a lot better this year. Hopefully there's nothing to worry about there, but hamstring strains recur too. You got him, you got Tyone, who it was something different every time, but he had 3 separate stints on the IL last year. And Edward Cabrera, that's why you could get him in trade, is because he gets hurt. If he were healthy and pitched like we've seen him pitch these 2 starts, you would have had a heck of a time getting hold of him. So it's really worrisome that these 2 guys are already on the shelf. And now it's like, I hope that one of them can get back in some kind of short order, because I don't feel all that confident that 2 months from now, the other 3 who are left behind are going to be healthy. The depth is pretty darn good. And it'll get even better if Justin Steele's rehab continues the way it's been going. That's great. They did a pretty good job, especially given, and we've talked about this enough times, that there's not a lot of homegrown pitching like coming up through the system. They did a really good job squeezing a whole bunch of big league ready, starting capable depth onto this roster, given that you don't have the roster flexibility you do when it's a bunch of guys who you can just stash in AAA, you know? So that part's good. They're still going to have to survive for a while. And the other downside of it being Boyd and Horton who go down is a lot of the rest of this staff. There are at least going to be days like today, you know, as we speak on Monday, where Jameson Taillon just gave up a couple of homers, and it didn't make the whole difference in the game, but functionally, that's kind of what decided the game. And I don't think we can count on that, on Jameson Taillon just consistently avoiding that. That's pretty much who he is at this stage of his career. So it's an issue.
Along with Imanaga, by the way.
Right. And what you really want is for those guys to just keep you in the game. But if you've got these two guys that you really just want to keep you in the game every fifth day, you really want them to be your 4 and 5, not your 2 and 3, or even your 3 and 4 if you're feeling really good about Ray or Assad in a given turn. So we'll just have to see how that goes. But it hurts so much not only to lose two guys early, but to lose these two particular guys, given the way this overall rotation was constructed. It strains a lot of the things that you thought were relatively sturdy on this roster.
Do you think it seems almost ungentlemanly like for them to get hurt before Steele gets back? Like, could they not have perhaps waited a bit so that we could have at least had some reinforcements? Or maybe, speaking of the second of the two potential Cubs pitchers, the homegrown, Jackson Wiggins, would have probably been in a better position to come up in July or in August. Like, I just feel like their timing was off. Timing is everything in this sport, and they got injured too soon. With regard to Boyd, yeah, you've always been a bigger Boyd guy than I have, Matt, but he's got an injury history of his own, significant in the past. Maybe having a month off for him will actually keep him fresher come August and September, so they won't collapse like he did last year. Who knows? As far as Horton, I would say my concern with Horton is that, he's been hurt a lot in his career. And what I really don't want to have happen, and this would be doomsday scenario, but I just don't want him to. It's starting to feel like if this is something where he's going to be out for the year and into next year, you start to think, gee, is this guy ever going to put together a healthy streak of 2 or 3 years together? And you start to wonder and get those questions in your head when you get guys who are missing so much time every single year. And I hope that's not the case.
Gives me Mark Pryor vibes when I see a guy who can't stay healthy like that.
I mean, honestly, his last season's Horton, that rookie year, it's not that different from Pryor's 02. We may or may not even get to ever see a Horton version of Pryor's 03. But yeah, it's a very valid concern just because it's not, he had Tommy John back in college.
Yeah, he was hurt in college. That's why
Right.
they got him when they did.
But then he also had a shoulder thing 2 years ago. And then last year, obviously, ended the year with a effectively sort of an oblique rib cage kind of thing. It's pretty clear this guy is redlining his body a lot of the time when he's pitching, straining it to its breaking point. And that's modern pitching in a nutshell. But some guys are able to negotiate that difficult thing and survive it for a long time. And we're picking up a troubling amount of evidence that Cade Horton might not be one of those guys.
Sadly,
Again, let's see what, maybe he's back on the mound in 2 weeks and we all feel like Boyd dodged and we worried too much. But
well, after the Boyd hit the 10 strikeouts 2 games in a row, I did jokingly tell somebody maybe he's throwing too hard and he should ease up a little bit. I didn't mean that. It was a joke. I didn't mean that actually, but here we are.
I mean, he ramped up so early for the WBC, and I am fully on board with the WBC. I hope that we can get to a point where we understand those sacrifices to just be part of doing business, the way soccer teams do if a guy gets hurt on international duty in the World Cup or something.
Hockey does it for the Olympics. They shut down the whole season so that everyone can go play the Olympics. It's what they do every 4 years. Yeah.
I love it, and I don't want to discourage it at all. I do think we have to reckon with the reality that ramping up early may have made it more likely that he was going to hit a bump earlier in the season. Now, like you said, one reading of that can be maybe he comes through that and he's fresh as a daisy in August and September. And that's just as good, because it's not like if you took the WBC out of the equation, it's not like you expected another 180 innings from it. But having him break right at the start of April is a problem. If it's breaking, if they're really just doing maintenance and kind of be really cautious at this point in the year and he'll be back on the mound before the end of the month, then that's a separate issue.
Any word on Seiya Suzuki's condition and when we can expect to see him back?
I think Friday, right?
Yeah. It sounds like he's going to meet them back at Wrigley when they come home to face the Pirates. So, barring a setback, of course, but they had him out there in his most recent rehab game. He did basically the same kind of slide on which he was hurt in the WBC without an issue. So we're getting real close to all clear, but I do think they want to make sure they can get him back, not just into the lineup, but into right field, because otherwise, the roster gets kind of clogged and dysfunctional in a hurry.
As somebody who has been at a couple windy Cubs games, the fill-in right fielder really struggles out there. Wow. There are some plays, even catches he makes, where you're like holding your breath.
I mean, he's got a little recovery speed. He's got, It sounds like a backhanded compliment because he's so small, and when he jumps high, it looks like he's jumping really, really high.
Right.
But he really does have good ups, and he uses them well. He reads the ball well when it gets close to him, which not everybody does, especially infielders going to the outfield. You see guys mess up that stuff and have things clank off their gloves. Real big kudos to Shaw for not having that happen, but the routes are atrocious.
They are really bad.
If a ball actually gets hit that requires him to read it quickly and get moving in the right direction fast, that ball is going to fall in. And that's just going to be the case for at least a month, because he does not have a lot of professional or even amateur reps at that position. There's no substitute for that. So,
and when he jumps really high with his arm up over his head, he can get 6 feet off the ground. So don't worry about that. At least with Suzuki, if he's going to drop one, it's going to be right off his glove or off his head or something. Like a routine play. He's not going to miss he's not going to run the wrong route like that and let the ball fall in for a double. So at least it'll be an error, right? So that won't be an earned run.
Well, and this is not something that just the mistakes were always so ugly with Seiya that it was hard to even stop and give him any meaningful credit. But Seiya also made a handful of plays every year that most right fielders do not make, because he could get some really good reads and take very direct routes, had good, above average, at least top end speed. And Shaw's he's fast enough, but he does not have any of those other ingredients. So,
well, and keep in mind, they want Suzuki to take over for Shaw due to Shaw's limitations. Suzuki himself last year was actually forced to play designated hitter because they didn't want him in the outfield. So, you're talking about,
perfect world, really well-built roster. He's probably your DH like he was last year, but that would have been very expensive to achieve this past off season, and they weren't interested in spending like the Dodgers and the Mets. So here we are.
So we've talked a little bit about what the lineup looks like with Suzuki returning. What about the rotation in the near term? We saw they called up Assad. Is this him and Colin Ray sliding into the spots?
Yeah, it seems that way. And I will say this, man. I think you guys know I've been on record for a while now as not being the biggest Ben Brown booster as a starter. There's just
I'm on the fence with Ben Brown as a reliever lately.
well, okay, that's the point I'm making is if you're going to move him to relief, I understand that you kind of need the length, and now you need the length much more because you just moved your true long reliever in Ray back into the rotation. But before that, I sort of wish they just committed to the bit and said, you're a 1-inning reliever now. Because his stuff can absolutely overpower.
He's got that 1-inning stuff.
Yeah. But having him do 3 2/3 innings every time he appears in the pen, you're exposing him to all the same weaknesses that made him not that great as a starter. And you're not even giving him the routine and the, sort of the advantages of being a starter. I don't know. But yeah, it certainly seems like Ray and Assad are the plan in the short term. And those are probably the two I would pick. So
are we supposed to forget about all the talk about how he was developing another pitch and stuff, or no? Was that
no? That pitch is there. I think people are, maybe some people are disappointed because
it doesn't work.
The changeup that everyone hoped it would be, it's not. Yeah. It's not the changeup.
Right.
The slider or cutter or whatever you want to call it, it's not really a good pitch. He does have a sinker now, and that's honestly a decent pitch. It's cannibalized the movement on his four-seamer a little bit, but look, if he has the two-seamer he can throw to like inside on righties, the four-seamer he can consistently locate it outside on righties, inside on lefties, and then the curve that just works vertically. That's how his curveball works. I'm okay with that in theory. Again, I don't think that package works as a starter. So I would really like to see him just lean into making him a short reliever. I think they felt when they started the season like they didn't really need another short reliever with all these veterans they signed this winter. I wonder how soon they might change their mind about that, given how some of those veterans they signed this winter have performed. But yeah, he really feels caught in between right now, which didn't seem like as big a problem until you lost two starters, and now he's basically filling what was Colin Ray's role in the bullpen. And you end up throwing him out there when you really need him to hang some zeros, and it doesn't feel like he's going to consistently hang those zeros.
Because there are too many like crooked numbers that get hung instead.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just he has one hiccup. He puts one guy on with a walk or a blooper.
Then a home run.
And then the chance of a 2-run homer is just way too high.
It's like 80%.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some of the games because we're kind of getting into it right now, talking about Ben Brown's recent performances and the bullpen's recent performances. All can be attributed to the 4-6 record that the Cubs have started the first 10 games with. Pat, I know you've been in attendance for a few of these. Opening day, the Cubs lose the series to Washington, dropping 2 of 3. Yeah. And then I know you went to the losing effort against Anaheim, but the Cubs did win 2 out of 3 before going on the road and being
humiliated.
Going on the road in Cleveland. Let's start with the homestand, then we'll talk about the Cleveland trip.
So at home, the weather was for that first weekend. The weather was a little chilly, although Saturday was a little better. But I guess Friday I was at the game, and it went from 65 to 35 in about 10 minutes, right at the beginning of the game, and then of course Monday night was a beautiful night, and the Cubs won as they would on a beautiful Monday night, and then they lost on Tuesday night in what was a really cold and bitter game. And so you look at the temperatures, and you're like, well, when it was nicer out, like on Saturday and Monday, the Cubs actually scored a bunch of runs and didn't give up too many. When it was really bad out, they were low-scoring games, and the Cubs ended up losing them. And that's not atypical, I guess, of an early season. You'd like to win a couple more of those close games, but frankly, as was alluded to by Matt, the bullpen hasn't necessarily been there to hold things. I think we got a little bit spoiled last year, the way the bullpen would come in and 4 different guys would shut the other team out. But remember also that only started like in May and June, which it does a lot of these years. The Cubs bullpens have been really rough in April. I mean, was it last year, the year before, they had 7 blown saves in April or something? It's 2 years ago. And I feel like we're kind of on that pace, which I always regret at the end of the year, but seems to be the price for hiring a bunch of people at minimum wage and seeing what fits. I will say my overall observation about this, and you could talk specifics. Isn't it great that Ian Happ has 4 home runs, and some people are struggling, some people are doing fine. It's so early, and we don't really have, I think, a set way of understanding how these small sample sizes at the beginning of the season reflect on the longer season. There's no real metric that where you can just extrapolate and say, oh, times 16, this is where you'd be. But I will say that at 4 and 6, I know people feel like the roof is caving in because the Cubs are on pace to win only 65 games, which sounds terrible. But another way to look at it is, if you look at their Pythagorean theorem, they should be 6 and 4, so that would be a 97 win season. So I mean, the grass can be greener on the other side. It doesn't take much to turn things around, and hopefully the Cubs will start to do that soon. But this isn't the start anybody wanted for the season. You don't want to be 4 and 6 playing a bunch of crappy teams and not winning, which they have effectively done, and you don't want your best 2 starters to get hurt. So total disaster on that front. But otherwise, baseball's a funny game. It's a long game, long season. So I'm going to wait a couple more weeks before I start to make any like broad-based analysis on what this beholds.
Mother's Day is the line of demarcation where you can start making the.
I feel like Mother's Day will have a much better sense of the team, but even then, things can turn around. 2015, man, the second half of that season, the Cubs were unstoppable, and they've had been a couple stretches like that. But yeah, I mean, a veteran team like this, you don't want to get too far behind early on, because veterans. There's only one thing that can happen to a veteran, and it's get hurt and get old. So you want to get off to a good start, and we'll see. Hopefully, Matt has some more inspirational optimism than I have at this point.
I have a philosophy that I think is important to espouse, and I try to say this at least once every year. So this is my chance this year. Please, everyone, remember that at least this far into the season, baseball is so stupid. It's stupid. It's stupid. There are the built-in off days, so everyone's home openers are protected. There's terrible weather, and especially
when you start in mid-March.
Well, yeah, and you play the Angels, the Guardians, and the Rays within the first 4 series. It is all wrong-footed and nothing. The thing about the baseball season, and players just talk endlessly about this, about the routine, about the rhythm. None of that is here right now. The weather fractures it and ruins it, and everybody's, there are guys still like getting their living situation figured out hours before opening day games. And you can't throw it out, right? I don't know if the Brewers are winning right now. They're in Boston, but the Cubs could be 4 games behind Milwaukee by the end of today. So you can't just ignore it. But at the same time, baseball's so stupid in these early days, and it's not how the game is going to look once you get in the flow of it. And yes, the injuries are important. Those can't be just wiped away. But underweight, like, make yourself take less seriously than you even can imagine the first, especially 3 series of the year, because it's all just weird. They played in their, they played a full week at home. Then they went and were still participating in the Guardians home opener and the Rays home opener. It's all strange. You line up on the foul line like 4 times in the first 2 weeks, and it just doesn't. It's not normal, and so the results aren't going to be normal. And there's time to shake that off and make up for it with momentum later in the year. Just remember that.
Which is why I like to start off the year on the road, because if the games are so weird, save your home games till later. I hate starting off with 6 straight home games against
Home
bad
games in
teams.
March was ridiculous to begin with. Yeah.
I mean, imagine a 6-game stretch in September, first week of September versus the Nationals and Angels. Cubs win 5 out of 6, and if that's the case, right? Because those teams are dead men walking by then.
I really think, and I will have complicated feelings about this if and when it happens, but I really think eventually when the league expands and the playoffs expand again, the regular season will probably contract a little bit. Whether that's just back to 154 or it could go all the way down to 144. I think
was it 156 before, or was it 154?
154 until 62 in the National League. Yeah.
It was before my time, Matt, so I appreciate you giving us that perspective.
They did play 156 a couple of times, ties and stuff.
Multiple All-Star games, the whole drill.
Yeah.
The Cubs did lose that game in Cleveland for the Cleveland home opener. The next day was rained out, so we had a doubleheader on Sunday, which, of course, they always split the doubleheaders.
Didn't have to, though. They actually could have won them both if they'd wanted to. I mean,
they did win the first
one.
Well
poised to win them both.
Yeah, they won the first one 1-0, and then lost 6-5 in
a game that they led and then came back a second time and still couldn't win. That's frustrating.
Before losing in Tampa Bay for the Rays home opener, as you were mentioning, Matt, another home opener for them, and losing that one 4-6. Silver lining for me in these first 10 games is Daniel Palencia. You've got a legit closer right now. This is we're not messing around with a Hector Neris or Ryan Presley situation. We're in April and we know who the closer is, and you can be confident when you get the ball to him that he's going to close it out. He's electric since the WBC, just been electric, and so he's my bright spot so far for 2026.
Are we each claiming a bright spot? I'm jumping in.
Please
back off, Pat. I get Edward Cabrera. That one's mine.
Yes, good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a delight that guy
what a
is.
Start. He's great. We were high on him during our prediction show. We bought a ton of Edward Cabrera stock.
We were bearish on your boy Matt Boyd, though. Sorry, for good reason, turns out.
Yeah.
I would say my bright spot is Nico Hoerner, who has demonstrated throughout the season so far just how valuable he can be. He's on pace right now to be probably the Silver Slugger at second base, maybe in the league MVP voting, and starter in the All-Star game, along, of course, with Ian Happ. Meanwhile, Moises Ballesteros will probably be cut completely because he's 3 for 20 with an OPS plus of 16. Clearly, Pete Crow Armstrong will be designated for assignment along with Dansby Swanson. So, the ups and the downs, right? If the first 10 games are as meaningful as Matt says they are, then, we got a lot going for us. It's nice to see Ben Brown's WAR is only negative 0.1, whereas last year it was minus 1.6. He's got time to keep working on that. But when everyone in your bullpen has a negative WAR, except for your closer, that's a bad sign, I would think, right?
Yeah. And that has been how it's felt. And that's the
it's felt like it's actually is, I guess. Everybody comes in and they get bombed occasionally.
I will say Palencia, obviously we trust. I basically trust Thielbar too. I think he had one hiccup, but
yeah,
I feel good when Thielbar comes in the game. The rest of them, and again, I think there's going to be stretches this year where I'm a little ambivalent about the likes of Hunter Harvey and Jacob Webb. I think there are going to be stretches of this year where we feel really good about Hobie Milner as that, like a Drew Pomerantz, he can just come in and get people out. It's going to be weird. We're going to wonder why it works so well, but it will. But it's just, you're vulnerable to that stupidity of the season, especially when you've got pitchers who don't throw 98 and miss a bunch of bats. If they come in and even a bloop single can be big trouble, or a routine fly ball can turn out not to be routine. that's this time of year in a nutshell. So
Yeah, look, they've got 6 guys in their bullpen who have combined for 27 innings and 19 runs, which isn't good. The fact that they've had to pitch so much out of their bullpen too, again, this gets to the silliness of the early season when the pitch starters only get to go 5 innings, no matter how well they're doing. You got Ben Brown, who's thrown in the first, even before today, I think in the first 9 games, he had 8.2 innings. He almost pitched a complete game in out of their first 9 games. Like it's just an odd thing. He had more innings pitched than all but 2 of their starters. It's just not a normal thing. So
Boyd running into trouble on opening day, and then Horton leaving after 3 outs of Friday's game. I mean, this early in the year, that just throws you way off.
And the Boyd thing was so weird because he struck out everybody he got. Everybody who made an out was a strikeout, but once they put the ball in play, it was like, ouch, crushed it.
Yeah, I wrote about this a little bit, that Boyd has some vulnerability to that. He changes speeds really, really, really well. So you can't sort of be halfway in between 2 pitches with him. But if you lock in and say, I am going to guess and I'm going to be right. If I'm right, I'm going to hammer the ball. You can do that a little bit with him. If he successfully makes you wrong, you're going to whiff. And they piled up a bunch of whiffs. But then when they did lock in, they really hammered him. So that's a little bit normal for him, but it was still a weird day because I didn't think the Nationals were going to succeed in that strategy against him of all teams.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, at least the Cleveland series is over. That team is hideously boring to watch. Those games were just as unentertaining as possible. Tampa now.
I'll tell you what, having watched Tampa, I run, in addition to Northside Baseball, people who don't already know this, I run twinsdaily.com and brewerfanatic.com.
We have no problem with you doing the Twins thing. Trust me. We're fine with that.
This is the 3rd series of Rays baseball that I'm seeing already this year, is the long and short of it. And they're not real good. So it didn't make me feel good to watch them beat the Cubs today because they looked really beatable. Even in taking a series here in Minnesota, it was like, a good team should win 2 out of 3 a lot there. Now, again, some of it was just they hit some balls over the wall off Tyone and then off Maton late. And part of that might just be the vibes were really good. They were back in Tropicana for the first time since the hurricane and all that. So throw it out. I just keep saying it. Baseball's stupid. It is stupid for another week beyond this too. Just try not to take it all too seriously. But yeah, they got to start winning some games because these were all the bad teams that you'd like to have collected wins against.
Yeah.
And a team that we've taken for granted as a bad team for a long time now has annoyingly good starting pitching, is coming to town this weekend. The Pittsburgh Pirates are here Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Let's look ahead to the week that will be and do some predictions for the remaining 2 games of the Rays series and the 3 games at home against Pittsburgh. Pat, we'll start with you and your thoughts.
Good. 3-3. And here's why. Because I predict they lose the first game to Tampa because they're opening up the new stadium. There'll be a lot of good vibes.
Sure.
The Rays have Rasmussen going in game 2. Tough opponent. We've got the Assad-Ray combo coming up for the last 2 games against Tampa, which is going to be tricky. I think they win 1 out of those 2, probably not both. The good news, though, is when they come home, I think they will maybe win 2 out of 3 from Pittsburgh because we will not see Paul Skeens. We will see Bubba Chandler, but he is a rookie. Ashcraft, I have a lot of faith in, but again, young, not a solid thing. And then we've got Władzinski against Imanaga. So I could see the Cubs winning 2 out of 3 in that. I could see Imanaga and Cabrera winning their games. Maybe Tyon falls to Bubba Chandler, but I think 3-3 is a fairly fair assessment for this time of year if things are going to play the way that things normally do. Suzuki's going to hit a home run at some point that weekend, so that'll help having him in the lineup. And I think we'll all come back feeling better next week.
Matt?
I err on the side of optimism in this section. I will like come on here and tell you guys all the reasons why I think the Cubs are broken, and then I end up picking them to go 4-2 for the week. I'm going to say we have to wait one more week for some of those good vibes you're describing, Pat. I think they finish this week out 2-4. Get one more of these.
Rough.
Yeah, I know. It's not fun. It's a tough time, but I think they just are in a tough cycle at the moment. The bullpen's still going to feel a little thin and uneven, and they're going to have to use Riley Martin more because they're still shifting Ray into the rotation, you know? So it just,
I hear Ben Brown can pitch many innings in a row.
Yeah. And look, that could absolutely turn out wrong, because I also think the process has been a lot better than the results for guys like Bregman, for Bush. I think that stuff will come around. I'm just not sure it's going to come around in these next 5 games, because baseball's stupid right now.
Yeah, Cubs bats are going to make up for the pitching deficiencies, and you're going to see a double-digit run game against Pittsburgh. Whoa,
That would be
heard it here first.
Yes,
Yeah.
that'll be the one that they win. And then
Moises
they will lose the
Baez-Neros
other
comes
two.
to
Yeah.
life. Moises
It'll be
comes to
like
life.
that series against the Pirates in
Yeah.
2023 when they badly needed a series win or a sweep,
Yeah.
and they no hit them in one game and won 10-0, and they lost
Yeah.
the other 2 by a combined like 3 runs. That's how. Yeah.
Yes, I'm with you actually, Matt, on this one. I think it's a 2-4 week.
You guys
God, I
will be
hope
ruining
you're
the day
wrong.
that you ruled against me.
Pat is the optimist
pessimist.
again.
I am the pessimist in this room, and no one can take my job. So
Yes, we're
how
Yes,
dare
so-
you?
again off-brand. Pat is the
Yeah.
optimist for the week. Yes.
Hey, Jeremy, I have a little surprise for you.
Oh, I love
In
surprises.
honor of our 400th anniversary here, 400th episode, I would like to go back in the time machine here and read you something very quickly, if you have a second.
Yes, please.
So we started this podcast. You claim in
November of 2013.
yeah. Do you want to hear the starting lineup for the last game before our podcast?
Oh, you got to let us guess this. You got to let us guess it.
Yeah. So this would be a lineup from what date?
Well, I picked up the 2012 lineup. My bad. This will be the lineup from. Let me get it real quick here. Sorry.
No, this is
missed it.
great.
It's great radio. I was thinking 2013, which was an even better, or 2012, which was the one I pulled up, which is probably even better than anything 2013 one could be. But
we started a podcast in 2013
yeah, it felt like 2012.
where we talked not at all about the Major League Baseball team.
Yes.
We were only talking about the minor leagues at that point
So,
because there was nothing to talk about in 2013.
The Cubs hosted the St. Louis Cardinals on September 29th of 2013. Oh, here's a good lineup for you. Ready?
Perfect.
Who was in the lineup on September 29th, 2013?
All right, let's just trade off. Jeremy, you can go first if you want.
Was Starlin Castro in the lineup?
Playing shortstop, batting leadoff, Starlin Castro.
I am going to try Junior Lake right away.
Junior Lake. I wish, but no, he was not a major league player at that point. You missed the brief window in which he was a Major League Baseball player, but it was not at that moment.
All right, let me try again then. Anthony Rizzo.
Batting third and playing first base for the Chicago Cubs, Anthony Rizzo. And now it gets funny.
Yeah.
There's some memes in this on this list, for God's sake.
Was Xavier Nady on this team?
Xavier Nady was not on this team.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? Junior
You're
Lake
one
did come up at
generation
the end of the year, and he did.
or late
He
there.
did. He did pinch hit. I didn't realize that.
Oh,
This
Junior
was
Lake
Junior
pinch hit.
Yeah, he came up
Good
that
call.
week. I didn't realize that, but he did not start.
Yeah, still.
And
I'm counting it as a. Yeah.
0 for 1. Cubs had 5 hits and no runs in this game, by the way.
Okay.
If that helps.
Am I going now? Is it my turn here?
Just throw names out.
Yeah. Now we're to the point where it's if you
yeah.
can come up with a name, throw it out there.
Oh, I've got some names left. Don't worry about that. Was this a Donnie Murphy day?
Sure was. Donnie Murphy,
second baseman,
of the Chicago Cubs, third baseman. Thank you.
Third baseman,
batting sixth and playing third base. Donnie Murphy. I'm going to name two other players who started that day.
Okay.
John Jay and Daniel Descalzo. Now they started for the Cardinals, so that's not going to count for your guessing, but they did start that day. Thought you'd want to know.
Future Cub great, John Jay.
Yeah.
Man, what a year that was. Okay.
And future Cub Daniel Descalzo, who turned out to be the greatest Cub free agent signing of about 6-year period.
Yeah. It literally when you look up backhanded compliment in the dictionary, that fact is waiting for you there.
You've named 3/4 of the infield.
Yeah, so second base.
Yeah.
Cody Ransom wasn't at second that day, was he?
He was not.
Okay. All right. Well, Darwin Barney, could it have been a Darwin Barney day?
It could not have been. No. He was no longer a Cub.
Was Soriano still on this team?
No.
Okay.
No one good was on this team. These are all bad players.
What about Nate Shearholtz? Can I get a Nate Shearholtz?
Nate Shearholtz playing right field and batting fourth.
Nate Shearholtz. Well done, sir.
Cleanup hitter, Nate Shearholtz.
Yeah, cleanup hitter.
That's good stuff,
man. Who single-handedly ruin the 100-year anniversary game, Jeremy, that we were at? That was in 2014.
2014.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, the following year he was going to ruin the first week of April. We got the cake and everything, and it was a big party. Except for he screwed up on a couple fly balls in the outfield, and that was us.
Was Wellington Castillo on this team?
No.
He may have been on the team. He may have just not been the catcher that day.
Correct.
I was racking my brain for catchers of this this vintage.
Yeah. You're not going to get this one, so
It's not Deoner Navarro, is it?
No.
That might have
Deoner Navarro is a first ballot Hall of Famer compared to this guy. So,
gosh, so we need our catcher, second baseman, and center fielder to round out this.
Oh, and a left fielder who you won't get, so I'll have to give you that.
Oh yeah, because Shearholtz was in right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, Justin Ruggiano?
No. Good guess.
Felt good about that one.
Yeah.
Michael Hermosillo?
No, but you're in the right ballpark. These guys are in the same hall of very bad. Or hall of very undistinguished.
Gosh. Trying to think of the trades they made that year. If any of the guys got plugged in who.
Nah. Don't think about it that way. Just think about obscure names that put letters together, just randomly.
Oh man.
Can I give you one just to kind of move this along a little bit?
Jog our memory here.
The catcher batting eighth, J.C. Boscan.
Oh no, you made that up. That's yep. I know when I'm being gaslit. That's not a real person.
He played 6 games that year, and he went 2 for 10. So there.
This team won the World Series 3 years later.
Yeah.
3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Just to show you how quickly times change.
All right, help us out with the rest of this because we're
okay.
Who was it?
Luis Valbuena, was he at second?
I wish. No. The second baseman was a guy by the name of Logan Watkins, 21st round pick. Remember him? He was a high hope. Now the center fielder, you'll remember, but I didn't expect you to get it. But Ryan Sweeney, right?
Cubs legend. Yeah.
The left fielder was Brian Bugasevic. Do you remember him?
Yeah. Or
Bogus.
He played.
If you gave me a million guesses, I would have never got.
So here's how bad the Cubs were.
Astros legend Brian Bogus.
He had 155 plate appearances for the Cubs that year.
Yeah.
God.
And the pitcher. So the pitcher was an all-star. That should help.
The pitcher was
like literally when the Cubs he pitched that day, he was an all-star pitcher, basically, probably.
Samardzija?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pitcher the next year. Also pitching in the bullpen that day, Hector Rondon, Pedro Strop, and Zach Roskop.
Well, that was the core, man. They built that World Series team from the bullpen out. And that's really maybe it's time to revisit that strategy.
And just for comparison point, I am going to just read you the Cubs starting lineup for October 3rd of 2012, which was the last game in 2012, the year before, because I think it's even funnier.
The year before we started our podcast.
Yeah, the year before we started our podcast. Tony
the
Campana,
team that inspired us to start a podcast the next year. We said this team needs to be talked about.
Batting leadoff, playing left field, Tony Campana. At second base, Adrian Cardenas. At shortstop, Starlin Castro. At first base, Brian LaHare.
Ooh.
Dave Sappolt was playing right field for the Cubs. Josh Vitters at third. Brett Jackson in center. Anthony Recker at catcher. And the pitcher that day was none other than Travis Wood. So there you go.
Yeah.
Boy, fun times back in the old days, huh? It was those 2 seasons that really made us say, we should talk about this every single week. This would be great.
And you were right, because this is great.
Yeah. So there you go. Little flashback.
Yes. When we started this podcast, there was Cubs Cast had just wrapped up, and it was pretty much just Ivy Envy, and so we started our show, and Corey from Ivy Envy was our first guest. He was guest number 1 on.
Was Bruce Miles guest number 2?
Bruce Miles, he was one of the first guests that opened up the door to having many guests, because
Bobby Dernier was number 3, I think, right?
Bobby Dernier is one of our favorite interviews of all time. He was tremendous. We've had a lot of great guests over the years. Some of my favorite episodes was your dad as a guest, Pat. My uncle Jim coming on as a guest to talk about Ernie Banks and some other things. So it was really
as a child when he found out the Cubs got Ernie Banks.
So we've had a lot of great guests over the years. None as many times as Matt. So of course we thank you and everyone who's been a part of this for so long. And we have single-handedly as a podcast turned out many MLB scouts. That have come through our podcast and been hired by teams and are no longer appearing on our podcast. So, so good for them. It's been great. We've met so many people that we know from the show that we've gotten to meet in real life. It's been tremendous.
Even James DeVoe.
Especially, yes. We love James, frequent contributor here, and
Evan Altman. Jared Willis,
absolutely.
They're all competitors of Matt's for the top spot. But it's been quite a
few. It's like the day I got married, the day each of my kids were born, the day I passed Evan and Ryan Davis on the leaderboard. Right. It's all right there.
Yep.
So much fun, and I think we'll close. I did want to talk one more piece of news here as we wrap up. The ratings came out for the opening games of the MLB season. So Austin Karp, Sports Business Journal, put out a great piece about the ratings, why are ratings important? Because it is what drives the price of your television contract. And MLB and sports in general rely heavily on the television dollars to help with this is what's going to set salary caps and other things that are going to come out of this next CBA. So ratings are extremely important. So it's something we pay attention to. Also, a lot of teams have no TV deals as the entire RSN market collapsed. So MLB is trying to. Manfred came out in an interview and said that they're trying to potentially have a deal where they could sell the entire package of all 30 teams. So changing that entire RSN model. So there's a lot of things coming. That's why it's important. And it was good news all around for MLB. As we talked about last week, the viewership success of the World Series, which was the most watched postseason in 8 years. The Game 7 of the World Series was the most watched Major League Baseball game in 34 years. This led right into big numbers for the World Baseball Classic, and it continued into the opening series for Major League Baseball. The opening day game on Netflix, the New York Yankees versus the San Francisco Giants, drew 3 million viewers on Netflix, which is a pay streaming service. Excluding the pandemic year, it's the youngest MLB opening day audience in a decade. The audience among adults 18 to 49 was the best for opening day since 2017. So
are they winning them over from the NBA?
That's huge. This was up
or
against
or is gas too expensive for NASCAR, so they have to can't race those anymore? I don't know. You tell me. I don't. Where are they getting the people from?
There was very much an article about, I don't know if you're directly pulling from the NBA, but it's like MLB is now basically neck and neck with the NBA for the first time in over a decade.
I think the pitch clock had a lot to do with that, frankly.
For sure.
There's a ton of that, and apparently there was somehow a second opening night on NBC Peacock. They got somehow an opening night as well for the Diamondbacks and Dodgers. That drew 3.2 million viewers. Fox drew 2.6 million viewers for their regionalized window of the season for their Saturday night baseball game, 2.6 million. So Fox's MLB debut was even with what Fox drew early last month for that US-UK pool play game in the World Baseball Classic, which is huge for any streaming service to pull a comparable number to over-the-air free TV. Like that's great. It also the 3 million for Netflix matches what CBS drew in prime time in the first round of this year's NCAA men's basketball tournament. So these are big numbers. Netflix will later on this season air the Field of Dreams game in addition to the Home Run Derby this year. So,
I think just to underscore too, you mentioned it informs what it's going to cost you to watch games. Will you continue to have to search for your team across 7 different platforms and stuff, or will there be a one place? Will the price come down because advertising rates go up? All of that stuff's all good for fans. Also, as we look ahead to November and December, when do work stoppages actually happen where games are missed and things? It's when the pie is shrinking. With the pie growing this much, I think people can afford to be a little more optimistic than they've been over the last year plus about, there's still going to be a lockout. Don't get it twisted. There will be a lockout this fall and winter. It doesn't have to cost us any baseball games in 2027. And the more that this remarkable popularity continues, these ratings numbers, every time we get one of these updates and they're as rosy as they've been for the last year, 2 years, 3 years, it reduces the likelihood that we're going to actually lose games next year, because everybody's just going to be making too much money to stop making money, or looking at it the other way, they would be forfeiting too much money by not, putting on any given game. So.
That's it exactly. My tune has been extremely pessimistic on how much baseball we're going to lose next year. These numbers are completely changing my mind on that. There's too much riding on Major League Baseball's next TV deal for them to sacrifice any part of the 2027 season.
too much upside to realize, right? I think
100%.
That's what's coming into focus is we weren't sure that the demand was there, the aggregate demand to drive a really, really good TV deal, even if Manfred could whip everybody in line and everything. And I think now it is pretty clear that demand is there. Partially because of things that Manfred's done too. We do have to give him that little bit of credit of some of these changes that Bud Selig would never have had the guts to do. Things like the pitch clock, the shift band, on and on.
ABS,
and ABS for sure. They've driven interest, and the league is a lot more popular now, and that's going to make a big difference over the next year.
And the current TV deal expires after the 2028 season, which means you negotiate a new deal in 2027. So you don't want to miss that negotiating window because you're on a work stoppage, because you're not playing games. You don't have those numbers to show. So that combined with Manfred's hope for providing a centralized option for the rights to all 30 clubs in 2028, there's a lot of optimism, in my opinion, for not losing a ton of games, if any, in 2027. The other side of that coin, though, is the owners. If the owners want to trash the goodwill because they're fighting for this salary cap, both sides have taken a position where they are ready for a lengthy work stoppage. Major League Baseball Players Association entered the year with $519 million in total assets per their annual filing with the Department of Labor at the beginning of the season. They've
been socking money away for a shutdown.
Yes, they increased. It was a 68% increase from the end of 2024 because they basically deferred their 2024 and 2025 licensing revenue to start building up their war chest. The owners also, meanwhile, have been setting money aside. $75 million per club is what the estimate is per the Wall Street Journal. That's $2.25 billion across the league for the owners, and they have a separate fund called the Baseball Endowment LP, which they can also tap into if they need additional funds. So both have built up significant war chests and are ready for a long-term work stoppage. But I'm hoping, like you mentioned, Matt, that the news of the pie growing and the continued growth that the sport is having right now, and the moment that it's having, isn't lost on the owners, and hopefully that's a positive for not losing a lot of games in 27.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts before we wrap it up and call it a podcast? Pat, anything you want to touch on before we close?
I'm very much looking forward to prove you both wrong this week on the Cubs' performance.
I hope so, too. Yeah. Thanks for bringing the optimism, Pat.
Thanks.
Yeah, we can always count on you for that.
Absolutely. A couple times a year.
Matt, please remind all of our listeners how they can find your work on the internet.
I'm at matrueblood.bsky.social on Blue Sky. I also, operate, edit, and often write at northsidebaseball.com. If you're interested in the work I do for other teams, you can just find me on Blue Sky to find those sites. I will also mention I write a couple of times a week at Baseball Prospectus. This is a stupid time of year for broad spectrum national baseball analysis too, but it gives us a chance to look at some really interesting kind of granular things. So if you're interested in the game beyond the Cubs, check out that stuff. But Northside Baseball is going to have, we're trying to run 3, 4, 5 articles a day, and we do some really good creative analysis of the games from day to day and trying to look at trends beyond one little moment too. So check us out.
Absolutely. It's great stuff over there. And you can follow us on all the social media platforms at Wrigleyville Nat. And if you want to support the show, we've been able to do over 400 episodes because of our listener support. Cubs fans know other Cubs fans, so please continue to spread the word. Tell your Cub fan friends about the show. Show them how to subscribe to a podcast. That's a great free way to support the show. You can also support the show by going to our YouTube page where we have the video version of this podcast. Even if you don't consume your podcast through the video media, going out there and giving us a like, subscribe helps us work the algorithm so other Cub fans can find the show. And if you want to support the show, another way to do it, the best way to do it, is to go to our store and buy some merchandise. You can go to the store, buy a shirt, a mug, all kinds of fun stuff, all kinds of merchandise over at the store. Links are on the webpage, WrigleyvilleNation.com, pinned to all of our socials and our link trees, etc. You can get right to the store. And, of course, our Patreon. Patreon.com/WrigleyvilleNation, where our patrons there have kept us ad-free for years. And I don't have to read ads. Pat doesn't have to read ads, all because of
Too
our
bad
patrons.
I'm so good at it.
We and every single penny goes back into the show for hosting fees, mic cables, etc. So we appreciate all of our patrons over there. Any dollar you can throw us helps us keep the lights on here. We just try to keep in the black. We're not trying to get rich off of the show. So just help us keep the show going by buying merchandise or supporting us at the Patreon. Either way, and make sure all the links I mentioned, everything can be found at WrigleyvilleNation.com. And with that, we're going to wrap it up and call it a podcast. Pat, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the debut episode of the Wrigleyville Nation podcast. My name is Jeremy Deemer, and I'm here with my cousin Pat. He's Skyping in live from Wrigleyville. I'm located down in the south suburbs. How you doing tonight, Pat?
I'm doing well. It's a cold, rainy night, but I can still see the Cubs moniker over the bleachers and the center field scoreboard from here. And
the sounds of Wrigley Field renovations aren't keeping you up at night right now?
Not quite yet. The sounds of standoff, if there's any sounds.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute here when we go through the news. First, let's go through a little bit about who we are, what we're doing here, and why we want to do this podcast.
Sure. Well, we decided to do this podcast for a couple of reasons. One, because we want to bring the audience some news, information, and analysis from people who are season ticket holders as well as neighborhood residents. I'm also personally on a couple of the neighborhood association boards in the area, and I think we can offer a unique perspective for fans of the Cubs, from people who live and breathe Cubs baseball and who literally live and breathe the Wrigleyville atmosphere 24/7, 365 days a year. So